sitting here thinking back over my life, all of the good things, troubles and strife. Well, I've had my heartaches and the troubles I've had. Still think good things outweigh the bad. I rock my babies at night when they cry. I watch their teardrops turn into smiles. Then when I realize that all the trouble I've had, but I still think the good thing outweigh the bad.
Hi Doug, it's nice to see you again. This is Doug and Rachel, and we're having
I enjoy seeing you girls too.
our weekly chat, aren't we? Doug, we've been talking about a lot of politics lately, which we tend to do over the garden gate over the years, but I thought maybe it'd be good if we could go back a little bit to the personal. So if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you some kind of personal questions.
Okay.
Okay?
Fine.
I think one of the first things I'm going to ask you about is if you have anything in your life that you regret.
I would say we all have regrets, but I would say nothing too large, just sometimes the way you treat your kids or something like that, and you think, if I had to do over, I wouldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I worked in the meat and grocery business pretty much all the time I was in Missoula, except for my last 9 years when I was the county assessor. I don't think I would have chosen that career again.
Do you have some idea what you might have chosen?
Well, actually, I came to Missoula with the idea of going to the university and becoming a pharmacist.
Really?
I went for a short time out there, then I got married and it never got back.
How long did you two see each other, date or court, before you got married?
I met Alice at a nightclub out in East Missoula. I think it was called the Penguin Club at that time. I don't know who I was with, but she was with her sister and her sister's boyfriend and somebody else. And so later in the week I called up for a date. I was kind of interested. She said, well, I'm sorry, but I can't because I have a date for this weekend. But be sure and call back.
So she was interested
I called
too.
back, and that was in April. We were married in November.
It was fast. Would you say it was kind of love at first sight?
I guess you would call it that. I was extremely interested, and apparently she was too.
And the two of you, were you both in your early 20s then?
Oh, she was 19. She was just out of high school. And I was almost 26.
So when you were married, did you have a child within the first year of your marriage?
Yes.
Yes. And by that time, then, your dreams of finishing up college were probably...
Ran out of money. And
Right, that's what I thought you had said, that financially it became difficult.
oh, I say we were always involved in community affairs, and I went through the offices of the PTA and the Lowell School, and Alice was always involved in something generally political. She was very interested in political affairs.
She was active in the peace movement, I know.
Yes, and then later years that was after the kids were all gone, that she got involved with the Jeanette Rankin Peace Center. She went back to Washington, D.C. when they unveiled the statue of Jeanette Rankin back there. She was there. And used to do a lot of things. I know we had a couple of black boys come over from Seattle and spent a week with us when our twins were about the same age, 10, 12 years old. And they brought a bunch of kids over here to stay with local people.
Was that to have children experience more rural life or small town life? Is that what that was for?
Well, I don't know which organization set it up, but they brought quite a few over. And then Alice was back as a chaperone when they returned them to Seattle when they went back. But they were with us about a week, I think. And the kids got along fine.
Mm-hmm. How many children did you say you had altogether?
Had 8.
Eight.
I lost the oldest boy about 11 years ago.
And that was something that I wanted to ask you about, is we go through a lot of loss in our lives, and the longer we live, it seems like the more losses we have to experience. I know that you lost Alice just a few years back.
Yeah.
How does a person remain as full of energy and life and as positive as I know you to be?
Well, I don't really know. I guess one thing is I'm interested in things. That reminds me of something I read a couple of years ago. This fellow was interviewing a bunch of elderly people and asking them what they attributed their long life to. The one lady said curiosity. I thought that was a pretty good answer.
Doug, do you think that life and your experiences and what's going on in the world have made you more cynical in any way than you were when you were younger, or do you feel optimism?
I've always been pretty optimistic, and I think we're in bad times, but I'm thinking and hoping that the people will wake up one of these days to what is going on. I was going downtown yesterday. I saw a car ahead of me with all these stickers on the bumpers in the trunk of the car. One of them said, when the people lead, the leaders will follow. I thought, well, that's pretty good.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So far we aren't up to the leading yet, but I think maybe it's coming.
That reminds me, I said I wasn't going to talk about political things, but this is a good time to bring this up. You said that you hadn't really started voting until you got together with Alice, and that
Yeah.
you felt like her dad was a big influence in that.
I got out of high school. Of course, you couldn't vote till you were 21 then.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 21 when I came to Missoula. But I hadn't registered. I didn't bother to register to vote. But like I say, I don't know if our dad would let me marry if I wasn't registered to vote.
Yeah.
When you found out I wasn't registered to vote, that's one of the boys, Gus, one of the twins. He tells this story. He said, the day I turned 18, and I came downstairs that morning, when I got up, he said my mother was waiting for him. She said, now you're 18, you can register to vote.
So it was a family tradition,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
pretty much.
What would you say in your life was the things that you have been most proud of?
Oh, my family,
Mm-hmm.
probably. And interesting work. I worked for the Montana Senior Citizens for 15, 20 years, and I was state president for 4 years. And some of the things we were involved in, we worked at the state legislature. We weren't always too successful, but we were always over there working.
So you're proud of all the efforts you made, whether they're successful or not?
Yeah, I
Being-
just was involved in it.
It sounds like kind of the message I've heard with your curiosity is just that one of the things that make for a good life would be staying involved.
Yeah. Yes, I think if more people stayed more involved, we'd be in better shape today. You know, about half the people don't even bother to vote. And so that leaves the ones that do vote pretty much have control of things.
Why do you think so many people don't bother to vote?
Some of them will tell you it doesn't make any difference who you elect. Things aren't going to change. so they just don't bother to vote. And others just don't want to, I think. I used to register voters, and I registered people probably in their 30s and 40s that have never registered to vote. They just aren't particularly interested in politics one way or another. And they think it doesn't make any difference, their vote. Well, it does.
So obviously, politics has always been a passion for you, particularly once you got old enough to realize the importance of it and start getting involved. What are some other passions that you have in your life?
I like the outdoors. I used to like to fish, go out. Did quite a lot of fishing. I used to have, the one job I had Wednesdays off. So it was a good day to go fishing. Everybody else was working.
So you had the spots to yourself.
Yeah, I had the whole spot to yourself. And I never was much for hunting. I went hunting a few times. I guess visiting with people and so forth is something I always enjoyed.
Now I remember you working out in your garden, in your yard a lot when I was living next door to you.
Yes, I did. I liked raising flowers. It was one of my passions, especially after I retired.
Mm-hmm.
I used to raise a lot of flowers, not many vegetables. I used to plant tomatoes and green beans. Outside, everything else was flowers. And then I faceted gemstones. You've seen them, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure. And that was very interesting. I really liked that.
I remember you winning a lot of prizes at the fair, at the county fair, for your dahlias and your roses in
yeah.
particular.
The one time I entered the rose show, just once. They have every spring. And I won first prize. It was a big silver cup about so high. And you had to keep it polished and take it back the next year just the way you got it.
And take care of it. That was your job, huh?
And you know what was engraved on it?
No.
Rose Queen of Missoula.
Doug's the Rose
I
Queen
got
of
rasped a
Missoula.
little bit about that.
Do you think people change? Maybe not, like I'm not so much referring right now to just their minds, like in a disagreement, but do you think people really do change or have the ability to change in a lifetime?
Oh, yes. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with what goes on around them. And, just like a person would change parties in politics. They finally come to think that the one they're belonging to doesn't really represent them. So, and yes, I think probably people that do quite a bit of thinking are probably more apt to make changes. And, yeah, I think it's probably a combination of reading, listening to debates, things like that, and especially if it's something that they have questions about. And who they listen to and what they read may make a difference. It may change their outlook.
I want to go back a little bit to family relations. You and Alice both had parents that stayed together. Maybe you can tell me more about your parents' relationship. What was that like?
Well, my father had one of these hair trigger tempers. But on the whole, my mother was just, when he flipped his lid, she just get out of the way, and she never argued with him or anything like that. And it's just something, he was just that way. He just had a kind of a hair trigger temper.
And her way of coping with that and keeping the relationship was
Yeah.
that she just wouldn't
That's
get
right.
involved in that particular incident. If he
Wait
was...
till he cooled off. And Alice's dad, he was very involved in political things. And her mother pretty much, what should I say, ran the household and so forth. He was the kind that when he got paid on Friday night, he came home and handed the check to her, and she took it from there.
So they were both working relationships.
Yes.
So that you feel that made a big difference in making you and Alice able to work through your problems, having that kind of an influence?
I imagine that had an effect on us, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you see it being passed down in your family?
I think it's, at least for some of them, because they didn't, all of them haven't stayed together. You know, there's been some divorces in the family, and that's quite natural these days. But on the whole, I think they're all pretty well settled down now and seem to be doing fine. I don't know. There's a different feeling, I think, out there now. The idea of getting married and so forth, well, if I don't like it, I can quit. And I guess we always took it, that part till death do you part, more seriously. Especially if you've got a family, because that really is hard on families, divorces.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that your relationship was an equal relationship as far as compared to most of the people you knew, compared to the past, compared to your parents' relationship? Do you think you and Alice had a more equal relationship?
I think we had a pretty good relationship, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, while we had our arguments and quarrels, they were never very long lasting. They were generally ended the first day. Came up, not always, but almost. We never carried any animosity after one of those. It's just natural, I guess, that two people are going to argue once in a while.
That's right. If you could change anything in your life right now, or do anything that you wanted to do right now, what would that be?
Well, I would like us to see an end to these stupid wars. I was just reading something the other day of what Eisenhower said about war. He said, nobody that hasn't experienced it can realize that what it's like and the stupidity of it. And I thought that was pretty great. You know, when he left office, he warned us about the mess we're in now. He said, beware of the military-industrial complex. He's a pretty smart man. He gave us some good advice, which we didn't listen to. Well, my dad was very anti-war. Alice's dad served in World War I, and he was very anti-war. So I just grew up in that feeling.
Mm. So other than world peace, for you personally, what would you like? Do you wish you could travel more? Do you feel content being here in Montana? Do you feel like there are some goals in your life still that you'd like to reach?
Not really. Just to hope I live long enough to see things change for the better. No, when you reach 90, you don't occasional letter to the Missoulian or something. That's about the extent of it. But I'm still interested.
So as long as you can pursue your intellectual curiosity,
Yeah.
you feel like that makes you very happy, and that's a good place for you to be in your life now.
If I want to know what's really going on in the world, I get on the computer and find articles from like the British papers or something like that, because they tell you what's going on. We don't hear. That radio program I listened to, or TV program I listened to this morning, they were talking about how these big corporations are doing advertising and masking it as news reports, which is illegal, but it's getting where you can't even believe what you read anymore.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that was a lot different when you were younger? Do you feel like there was a lot more honesty in the media?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I think there was, really. And that's what some of the old time news people are saying that it's much worse than it used to be, that there's a lot more, I should say, honesty in reporting than there is now. And of course, one of the reasons is big corporations own pretty all your news media anymore. The people working for them, while they may not be, what should I say, given orders of what they can do, they know their limitations if they want to keep working there.
The journalists themselves.
Yes. I read an article last year, this fellow that would have been the editor, I think it was, of the San Jose Mercury News, which was considered one of the better papers in the country, and he quit. And his family was pretty upset with him. And he told his daughter, he said, well, there comes a time when you have to take a stand. He said, our meetings anymore at the paper are not about news, they're about that bottom line. How is our bottom line doing? So it's about money.
It's interesting when I look at our conversations, I keep trying to bring it down to Doug's personal life, Doug's loves and personal dreams, and you keep bringing it back to the worldwide view. And you're talking about the importance of change in your life, that you'd like to see change.
Money was never a big concern of mine. If I had enough to pay my bills and feed my family and do a little something on the side when you want to, I never even thought about getting a lot of money or anything. Because I know a lot of people that had money and they didn't seem to be any happier than I was. No, I think we've become a consumer society, and I think we're going to have to change a little. There's more important things than money.
What would have to happen to make you take an about face and change your opinion about the war, about, that's a big one. What type of thing would have to happen to make you change like that?
I don't know. I don't think anything would ever change my opinion about the war. Because, as far as I can see, they're all counterproductive. You wind up with millions of dead people and, well, look at Vietnam. It went on about its way. After we left, we killed a couple million of them, but it didn't change anything. And all this fear of communism that we had all over those years, I don't think was very founded, really. They say most people get more conservative as they get older. I've gone the other way.
Doug, in some of Martin Luther King's sermons, his writings, he indicated that it is real important to do physical hands-on work to make change. He also felt that it was real important to use prayer, that the two together were important. Now, for different people, prayer means different things.
Well, of course, I am not a religious person, so the prayer part really doesn't mean much to me, but you've got to do more than just pray. That's where the hands-on comes. You can't, it's not going to change just because you pray. You've got to do more than that. You got to get out and really work to change those things. If you want to pray at the same time, fine, but that alone won't do it.
Do you feel like with the physical work that people do, joining organizations, becoming more politicized, sending money to help people in organizations, do you think that do you have any feeling that faith or whatever it is for each person, different religious, different spiritual beliefs, that we need something besides, something a little extra? I think that's what Martin Luther King was saying, that we need to do everything humanly possible to make change, and we also need to ask for and reach for there's something that we don't understand in this world to help us along.
Concern for your fellow man. That's really what it's about, is to, whatever you do, hopefully would make life better for somebody else. Some people, if they believe that praying along with the work they do is helpful, more power to them.
That brings up a question for me about your upbringing, because you keep mentioning that you have not specifically in a church, you didn't have your specific religious. Some people believe that that going to church is what creates conscience and morals and a sense of morality for people. If people don't have religion to create a moral code, where did you get this sense of what's
Well,
right
my
and wrong?
parents, what's right and what's wrong.
So even though there were, punishments if you got in trouble, it seems like there was also a point at which you developed an inner conscience where you made your own moral decisions about what was right and wrong, and it wasn't based on what was outside of you. What do you think what creates that in a person?
Well, I don't know. I still think it's a lot in the way you're brought up. That your parents have a big effect on how you turn out.
What could possibly ever happen that you could imagine, hypothetically, that could make you feel differently about one thing in your life that you feel really strongly about now?
People that you read about that are maybe in politics or whatever, and you have disagreed with them with what they've been saying for a long time, and all of a sudden they say something that really startles you and think, well, maybe they're not so bad after all. They sound like they were changing their line of thought somewhat. And you thought, well, maybe I've misjudged them. Yeah, that happens.
So it sounds to me like you're talking about an openness of mind,
Yeah.
being willing to change your mind.
Yeah. I never regretted being raised on the farm and the hard work, because I think it's good for you. I think it teaches you quite a lot.
What kind of things do you think it teaches you?
Well, just the fact that hard work is something you should do.
Uh-huh. Do you think it gives you a sense of self-confidence and self-reliance?
Yeah, I think it does.
Being able to do that?
Because you had certain things you had to do, and you did them, and you didn't have to be told every time to do it. You develop I guess a sense of duty or something.
Responsibility.
Responsibility.
What do you think we could do? It sounds like we might be missing out on something as far as what we can learn from the physical labor.
Exercise regularly and so forth. It's prolong their lives.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have physical exercise to keep you in shape.
Do you think that physicality helps your mental state of being?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it's all, if you're in good physical shape, I think you're more apt to be interested in what's going on around you and more apt to get involved in things. Yeah, if you sit in front of this thing all the time, you're not going to get it.
Thank you for talking with us today
Oh, I
again.
enjoy it.
And we'll do it again in a week or so.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you, Doug.
I rock my babies, and I when they cry, I watch their teardrops turn into smiles. Then when I realize that all the trouble I've had, but I still think the good things outweigh the bad. But I still think the good things outweigh the bad.